Well, hello there. My name is HW.
And I'm John too.
And thank you so much for watching Tone Junkie TV. John, I thought it would be really cool to go through some of the profiles and talk about why I'm so excited about this 63 Trem-Luxe pack from Tone Junkie. A lot of people know Tweed amps. We've done some Tweed amps. A lot of people know blackface stuff. We've done a bunch of blackface amps. But not everybody realizes how special brown face cream Fenders are. So to set the stage, here's how it works. Fender's earliest amps were made in the late 1950s, and that's all the Tweed stuff. And they can be characterized by, they're American sounding, they have a nice high top end, but they don't have a ton of extended deep low end and bass. Even a Tweed Twin doesn't have a bunch of low end bass, which you can see in the Tweed the Tweed Twin low pack. They don't have a huge extended bass. Instead, the bass is almost shifted up into this lower mid-range.
Right.
And they have this very grunty quality. It's a sound of blues, Bonamassa, Eric Clapton plays those things now.
Right.
You hear that all over the place, right? But they were also put out in a time when pickups were very low output. So a lot of that gruntiness wasn't so distorted yet, right? But as they progressed, pickups maybe are getting hotter. People want to turn amps up louder. You know, like a Tweed Deluxe, you can't get a lot of headroom out of it, right? So basements, you see twins, high and low power twins. They thought, let's make something a little more pristine, clean, and let's make the next evolution. And that was the early 1960s, 62, 63 in this case. You get these brown face amps. Fender had some success with these, but they kept going, right? They wanted them to even be more sparkly, more high-endy, more scooped. And that's when we get into the classic blackface sound. Extend the bass even more. This thing has more low end than a Tweed, but it sits really in between the Tweed sound and the blackface sound.
Right.
So you've got Tweed, grunty, not a lot of low end, some high end, not huge, super brilliant or present, but bright. Then you've got blackface, and when you start seeing bright switches, super present, extended bass, you know, and really scooped in the middle, and really low gain in a lot of ways. I mean, you put a Tweed or you put a Twin, you know, they just kind of keep getting louder. They start to break up, but you really are missing all that mid-range and the blackface stuff. For me, brown face amps are the perfect middle ground. And the reason I love these amps so much is they have almost a blackface clean to them in that they're sparkly and bright and beautiful. But when you push these things,
they really get going.
100%, if someone put this amp out today, someone would say, wow, it's like a Fender met a Marshall.
Right.
And was like just this amalgamation of the two. But it's really a Tweed meets a blackface.
Right.
Because it's got some of that low end mid push and then some of that blackface high end.
Yeah.
Let's stop talking.
And hear it?
And let's hear it.
Let's hear it.
Okay, here is B2. It's the bright channel 2. And here you're going to get almost a blackface kind of quality to it.
It's like spanky.
Yeah, but it's a little more...
It's not super scooped.
It's not super scooped, and you almost hear in the low end a little bit more of that grunt, like just play an open E chord.
Right.
You can hear almost right there the potential of what we're gonna hear in a minute. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now we can get super clean with it too, and this is the bright channel. The bright channel is brighter, but to me, these channels, normal and bright, really remind me more of a Marshall in the sense that this thing to me is a little bit Marshall-esque in the sense the Tweeds have all that low-end mid-range, right? And they have low and bright. But when Jim Marshall copied the 59 Tweed, 59 Bassman, the Tweed Bassman amp, brought it over, switched the tubes around, he made some of the changes that are made here, which is he pushed a little more into the bass, which is part of that Marshall sound, a defined kind of tight bass, and took away some of those low mids. He put in a lot more high mids and stuff, and that's kind of the Marshall Plexi voice. But in terms of the JTM 45, there's some similarities. You can see the same starting point, and they sort of, as they take off, they eventually get further and further away, but there's these points where they're kind of comparable. Yeah. Check out All the Way Clean, B1.
Super clean.
Super clean, and I would believe that's a blackface.
And not even that bright either.
Yeah.
They're a little bit dark.
Yeah. They don't have like a bright switch, so it's not that amount of like presence being added in.
It's not that like typical Fender, too like shrilly almost. Yeah. You know,
like twins get super up there, right? And the smaller you go in the Fender range, as you go down to a deluxe, it's a little less, and you go to a Princeton, and it's really.
But what you see though is when you turn those amps up, they don't do what you want them to do. They get spitty and gross a little bit.
And to me, blackface amps sound their best at about, from 3 to 5.
Right.
Maybe you get to 6, but when you start getting 7, 8, and 9, they lose all their bottom end.
Right.
They fall apart.
Right.
And what makes them, they're super loose.
Right.
And that's what makes the clean so beautiful and lively. Exactly. But when you add so much preamp gain, it doesn't have the tightness like a Marshall has. That's why when you see modern Marshalls today, or Mesa Boogie amps, a lot of times people will say the cleans are sterile or stiff.
Right.
It's because they're trying to be tight for when you get gained up. Okay, check this out. Let's see how this thing ascends. So we heard B1. Here's B2. Very cool. Here's B3.
That's B2 plus.
Oops, B2 plus. Here's it push with the clon.
It's so good. Keep playing it.
You hear that mid-range and sort of I pulled down the treble a little bit just to make it a little more push mid-range, kind of thing. Here's B3. Blackface amps don't sound like that.
No,
they start to sound like that a little bit, but there's a little more like low mid-range. And Tweed amps don't sound that clean.
No.
And that sort of...
Well, the breakup on it too is not... It's much more pleasant than a Tweed amp.
Yeah.
When you start to really push it.
Yeah.
For me.
Yeah. It doesn't give away that immediate feeling of like lo-fi, vintagey sound. You know what I mean? Let's take this up. Here's B3 Plus with a clone on it. Keep going, B4.
Dude,
this is it.
It's so good.
And this is where the amp is really in its sweet spot. And we're probably about looking at the settings of where that would be. I think I might have had it a little bit higher on like 6 or something. Really, these are kind of the settings that are probably I had it on for B4. It was a little bit between 5 and 6 here, right? And this to me is a real sweet spot of the amp. So play that a little more, and then we'll switch to the clone version.
Oh man.
Turn on the clone now. Okay, as great as that sounds, I'm going to put this on 5, and I would just say this. This sound, if you told people this is a sound with no pedals out of a 63 Fender, most people would not believe you because most people don't realize what these brown faces do.
Yeah.
Play this sound. they almost
It's
have
so good.
They almost have this Marshall-esque quality because you
Right.
see Jim Marshall going one direction and Fender starting to go another direction, but they're not there. They're not at the blackface stuff yet.
Right.
And so there's this mid-range in here. Is it as tight as a Marshall? No.
No.
It has a little more of this tweedy vintage characteristic. There's probably a reason these aren't the most iconic sounds of rock and roll, because with a Les Paul, that Marshall thing is a little tighter, a little more.
Right.
But this thing sounds amazing.
Well, and in 1963,
Yeah.
what album from 1963 features that tone?
It's true.
It's almost like they were producing a product that no one was asking
Right.
for because no one wanted that
Right,
kind
right.
of grit yet.
right.
But
Right.
here it was
Right.
the whole time.
No, totally. It's later in the 60s that the Plexi really becomes the sound of rock and roll,
Right.
where you get Cream and you get Hendrix and stuff.
Right.
But these amps to me are great at this thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now, let's try, here, let me plug in here with the Strat, because I want people to hear what a great combination this is.
Totally.
Here's B2.
That's like everything you want out of like a Strat with a Fender tone.
It is, and you know, just adding a little, like, I'm going to add the soft shaper that I put into all these effects, you know? Fat.
Yep.
Sounds to me like a blackface, but a little less scooped, which, aren't we always adding pedals to get a little more mid-range,
Little
right?
And it's a great tone too because it's just on the vert. Like you can
Yeah,
tell
it's
that it
ju-
almost wants to break
it's,
up, but
it's
it's
just
not.
pushing a little bit. I mean, to me, that's a killer sound. Of course, you can throw like a tube screamer on there. I love that sound. And then, you know, we can goose it up here, and you're going to immediately get, let's go to B4.
Yeah, with the single coils, it's man.
It's more snappy,
Right.
and to me, almost with the single coils, you even more get the flavor of like how it's a little bit different.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's with the clone. Love it.
So
Now, that is that's the bright channel. If we move over here, and we put in a bunch of, there's some directs in here, there's a bunch of pedal stuff. I'm not going to go through all those, but we even did this amp with golds. Now here's the less bright version with of the same amp, but it's the normal channel now, and you can hear the difference. Here's the difference between that bright channel and that normal channel.
You know, I really like that.
Yeah.
When we were playing this amp before, I was like, man, I don't like that normal channel. But I like that tone.
With the right guitar.
With the right guitar, I think it really it's not that it's dark. Obviously, it's less bright.
Yeah.
But there's with some guitars, it almost seems too kind of muffled.
Yeah.
But that has enough brightness in the guitar, and the guitar itself is scooped enough.
Right.
That this really works.
And with the right guitar, this is going to be the right channel to use. You know, where the other one, darker guitars, you're going to find, you know, you'll like the bright more.
Right.
Now this thing, as it gets going, that's N2. I'm going to jump up here to N4. I mean, it just screams. And even the bridge of this Strat, you know?
That's great.
And this is not the beefiest sounding Strat bridge, you know. No. You throw the little the clon on there. I mean, it just gets going.
Yeah, that's really great.
Let's hear it with these P90s.
Totally. Dude, that's killer.
No one would say that's a 63 Fender. Especially, I'll just point out, just for the uber geeks, you know, watching this video. This is not only a 63 Fender, it's a Trem-Luxe, which means it's part of the family of Fenders that have the smaller output transformers compared to like the Bassman or the Twin and the other amps. So, you know, so like a bandmaster and a Bassman, the biggest difference between those amps, there's some circuit differences, but really it's the output transformer.
The Bassman had a
bigger one,
right?
And it's going to be more aggressive, and you can hear that in the 65 or 66 Bassman compared to the Bandmaster, which we haven't done a Bandmaster yet, which I should. But I might do a brownface Bandmaster soon.
That'd be killer.
The brownface twin amps are like 10 grand, but I got to get my hands on one. Because to me, the brownface twin is an amp that sits between a Tweed twin and a blackface twin, and it should be one of the best ones out there. What brown faces do in a twin format should be amazing.
Right.
I hardly know anyone who's ever played them or even seen them in person. They're very rare. They were not selling a ton of twins in these brown face years. But you would never guess. Let's go back to normal channel. Here's N3.
Going too.
It really does. I mean, N3. There's always, I find, with Tweed stuff and with Marshall stuff, there's always a little more gain. I think because there's just more mid-range on the normal channels of all these amps. It does get a little going. Here's N2.
Yeah.
Now, of course, it's a Trem-Luxe, so we have to throw in some sort of tremolo on here.
You can't exactly profile a tremolo.
You can't profile a trem. Does the trems in the Kemper nail the sound of this brown-faced tremolo? Not really, but that sounds beautiful. No one would ever be like, I thought that was a 63 Trem-Luxe, but then the trem came on, and I realized we were listening to a fake, a farce. Digital artifacts were all over the trem sound. But no, it's beautiful. It's really beautiful. And we did some golds in here too, which I'll just jump over to the golds. You know, everyone always says golds sound brighter. That's not a good description of Alnico speakers. They sound more high mid-range push, but they actually have less extended high end than a lot of other speakers, which never really comes across because you always pair them with amps that are super bright and brilliant, like the AC30. But check out this B2. It's going to be full.
Cool. That's like it has a very like brilliant sound to it, but it's not overbearing.
If you really compare it to, like, we'll jump back to B2 in a minute with the other speaker. This sound has a lot of treble, but the actual frequencies aren't as extended way up in the high end. So it doesn't sound like a bright channel in terms of, like, that could almost sound like this normal channel if you brightened it up more on the amp itself.
Right.
That is sort of the effect and how you get the chiminess through amps. So even an American amp like this can get more chimey with an Alnico speaker. And, you know, we all know Tweeds work well with Alnico speakers. These brown faces sitting between Tweed and blackface, they kind of work too.
Right.
But to me, blackfaces and Alnico speakers aren't always the best match. They can be. But with this brown face stuff, it really works well. Play this one more time and then we'll jump over to the other speakers so we can hear the difference. Here's B2. That's chimey. Now that's B2 with the golds, so that's G B2 is how we note it in the profiles. Now I'm going to jump over to the regular speakers we used, which are the Scumbacks, which sound fabulous. And boom, here's B2. To me, that's more typical American sounding. There's more presence up there. Less of that little sort of honky 2K, 3K push that is chime.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
It's brighter, but it's not chimey like the other one.
It's brighter, but not chimier. Oh, we're really getting into some stuff now, because these are some of the misconceptions people have about tone right here.
Totally.
Back to GB2. If I was a boutique amp manufacturer, I would clone a brownface amp, put Alnico speakers in it, and I would call it a mix-up or a mash-up. I would say we took an American amp, added more low, mid-range, and girth to make it a little bit martially when you push it, but the Alnico speakers now give it chime of a more classic sort of Voxy amp.
So what is
and people would say it does everything.
Right.
Which is this, right? It's the brownface with some Alnico golds.
So what does it sound pushed a little bit with the golds?
So if we push it a little bit, let's go up to 4. Now try the middle position of that. That I might even up the definition just to make it sound its best with that guitar a little bit, because you know there's a good amount of low end in those pickups. Some of that chime kind of goes away when you get so much gain, but try number 3 here. I'm really excited about this pack because I feel like if I were to describe this, people would go, it sounds like the most amazing amp.
Right.
It's like, it has these sort of bright present, beautiful Fender cleans with a little more low-end mid-range that almost gets on this tweedy thing. Because of that, when it gets going, it sounds like an older Marshall kind of type circuit. And then with the golds, there's some chimey, cleaner stuff in there.
Right.
That's just beautiful. Then you throw the clone stuff on top of that.
I was just going to say, then you put the clones on there too, and it's like, man.
Now it's a sound of rock and roll.
Yeah.
And there's a bunch of pedals that we didn't even go through, which are in there. A bunch of really cool boutique pedals. This, I hope, is helpful to people to see what's in this pack. And maybe want to try it out. There's some free stuff that's out there too that went out in the emails and everything. But gosh, these brown faces are great amps, and I think I'm going to get my hands on some more brown face stuff because I don't see a ton of them in the Kemper world have been profiled, and so
they're not really. They're kind of like there's something that everyone kind of knows about, but. Like, obviously brown face is like a thing that everyone knows about, but I don't see a lot of them being used.
Yeah, you don't. And the reason, I think, is there's not a ton of them out there.
Right.
In terms of the Tweed stuff has been reissued. It's never really gone away. It found its place into sort of the sound of blues and then eventually rock and roll and everything. The brown face stuff was really, because they were these transitional models going towards blackface, they only made them, I think they made them in 61. They definitely made them in 62, 63. I don't even know if they made them in 64. In 64 is when you see the blackface stuff come out. And then 65, Leo Fender sells the company and they run forward with blackface is our amps. I don't know, were they making Tweeds then either? I think Tweeds came back later. It transitions to Silverface. They start changing a bunch. But 65 and 66, those are the blackface ones that everyone talks about because they're more available in more numbers. 64, of course, same thing. It was just a smaller company. And then 67 is when you see the first changes to circuits, small ones. 68, 69, you get drip edge, Silverface stuff.
So these were a pretty special little window there, where people were still trying to figure it out and stumbled on something that, obviously 50 years later turns out to still be an awesome sound.
Obviously it was great where they were going with blackface, and that's the sound of so many classic records and sounds, right? But the stop along the way, I think, is really brilliant. That's how I would describe this. In the journey from Tweed to blackface, this is a brilliant stop along the way.
Right.
And it's the 63 Trem-Luxe pack from Tone Junkie. I hope that's helpful to see what's in that pack for everybody, and sort of some of my methodology as I'm going through a pack, profiling this stuff. What are the sounds we go for and look for, and that's what I was going after when I was profiling this thing.
Sounds great. I can't wait to use this.
Are you going to use it?
I'll definitely use this pack.
I know. Sure. Sometimes I feel like amps need pedals, like they need that clon, but there's quite a few sounds in here that I'm like, no way. Like this B5 one. It's great, so right?
It's so good.
I've been HW.
I'm John 2.
Thanks so much for watching Tone Junkie TV. HW and John 2. Out. Beautiful.
It really is great.